Hello, welcome. I'm just going to make a quick video on the basics of English. Don't forget to go to my YouTube channel or my podcast, The Patient Teacher. Please subscribe. I'm just starting out, but I'm hoping to attract many viewers. Okay? So the topics I'm going to cover are the subjects, the verbs, and the verb tenses. I'm going to keep it short, but it's the basics, the first things you need to know when you're learning English. Okay? So if you look here, we have singular, meaning one, and plural, meaning two or more. And we have first, second, and third person. Okay? So singular, the subject is I. Second person, you. And the third person is she or he. Notice how she is much bigger than he. It used to be very funny in class when I would say the women are so much more important than men. Okay? And plural, we have we, you, and they. Okay? So when you're starting out, keep in mind all the sentences should be subject, verb, object. Until you get more confident, then you can make them different, but at the beginning, English is set up so that it's more easier to understand if you use subject, verb, object. Okay? I'm going to take this off too. Now, here's where you want to pay attention. We have the verbs. We have two important distinctions. One is called the infinitive, which simply means we have the word to with the verb. Okay, and you'll see why it's important in a second. Just remember, infinitive means to and the verb. The other one is called the gerund. Now you'll remember from pronunciation, a soft G is like a J. So we say gerund. And in this case, it means the verb plus ing. Okay? So you're going to see this often. Just remember, infinitive, to plus verb, gerund, verb plus ing. Okay? Now, some examples would be to eat and to run. Okay? And down here we would have eating and running. Okay? Now, here's where it gets more difficult. I want you to remember that with the infinitive, that is used after verbs like want or need. And the gerund is used after verbs like enjoy. Okay? So let's go back to our subject. I want to eat. I need to run. I enjoy eating. I enjoy running. So you have to remember that it depends on the verb you're using, whether you use infinitive and gerund. Okay? So there is actually a list. I'll put it on the website where to find the list, and then whichever verb you're using, then you either use the infinitive or gerund. One thing to keep in mind with the verb like, you can use either. Okay? I like to teach. I like teaching. Either is fine. No one's better than the other. But there's only 5 verbs that do this, and like is the most often used one. Okay? Now let's go to the tenses. There's actually 12 tenses. Okay? The one I find best is English Club. Just go to englishclub.com and put in 12 tenses, and they lay them out very easily to understand. Okay? Now, we have 3 main tenses that I'm sure everyone knows. Present, past, and future. Sorry. Okay, let me erase that. Present, past, and future. Don't forget with future, it'll always be will plus the verb. Okay? So that's quite simple. 3 main tenses, present, past, future. Here's what's difficult, and many students don't quite grasp it. We have 2 types. The first type is simple, and the second type is continuous. So you have the word continue, meaning to keep doing something, and continuous is just another form of this type. Now, continuous is difficult in the sense that you have to remember we use the verb be, okay, and then the verb with ing, okay. So let's make some examples. I eat dinner. But continuous is something you're doing now. Let me put it down here. Now. I am eating. So those are 2 different things, right? Simple is something you do every day. Continuous is something you're doing right now. I teach English. Something I do every day. But right now is different. I'm talking about what I'm doing right now. I am teaching. Okay? Something to keep in mind. Now the last thing we'll talk about is the perfect tenses. And this is something that we use quite often. So I want you to pay attention, make sure you understand. The perfect tenses use the verb have. Okay? So present perfect. What's the present of have? Have. Or in the third person, has. Now, past perfect and future perfect, you'll very rarely use it, okay? Especially in the beginning, you'll hardly ever see it. You'll need it later, but at the moment, you'll probably rarely see it, okay? But present perfect, you'll use quite often. So don't forget, you have the subject, and then either have or has for the third person, okay? And then what we have is called the past participle. And these can be harder to learn, so there's a website where I'll put in the link. There's a website called My English Teacher. I think it's .net, and you can find all the past participles, okay? So as you're beginning, you want to look it up and make sure you have it there with you, okay? Now, I'll just write down an example sentence. I have eaten, okay? Somebody asks you, did you eat dinner? I have eaten dinner. Now that will be simple. Remember we did simple and continuous? The continuous would be I have, and then you have your be, in this case, been eating. I have been eating. Okay? So somebody says, what have you been doing for the last 30 minutes? I have been eating. Okay? So you have the 2 distinct types, simple and continuous. Remember we learned that before. With the present perfect, I have eaten, I have been eating. Okay? Now let me just put it on a timeline so you see some context. That's something, I'll just put here timeline, and then just something to keep in mind, okay? I'll put the X for something that's happening now. That will be present tense. Here, something that happened before, past tense. Something that's going to happen later, future tense. Now, something that started in the past and continued to the present or now, that is present perfect. And we use it quite often. Okay, so make sure you learn this. You have the timeline, you have the 3 main tenses, 2 types, that's 6, and then you have 6 perfect tenses. Although only 2 will you use for now. Okay? I'll put another link for you to practice this. There's an exercise where you can practice doing the different types. Okay? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to start doing regular videos. If you subscribe and you keep up with the videos, you can learn English very quickly. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.